The massive chambers of the Galactic Council buzzed with excitement. Representatives from over 300 species sat in their raised platforms, their voices echoing through the vast space. Today was different from their usual meetings. A new spacefaring race had been discovered. Admiral Stone of the human exploration vessel Pioneer stood calmly at the center of the chamber. His small frame looked even tinier compared to the towering aliens around him. The Council's head scanner, a tall blue-skinned being named Master Bright, stepped forward with his report. Honorable Council members, Master Bright's voice boomed through the chamber. Our deep space scanners have detected this species, who call themselves humans, operating spacecraft beyond their home system. He paused, checking his data tablet. However, there is something unusual about their vessels. The Council members leaned forward in their seats. Some used their vision-enhancing devices to get a better look at the humans standing before them. Their ships, Master Bright continued, are remarkably small. The largest human vessel we've detected is barely a quarter the size of our standard transport ships. A wave of amused murmurs spread through the chamber. Admiral Stone remained silent, his face showing no emotion. He'd been warned about this reaction by his superiors back on Earth. Lord Deep, the massive representative of the warrior Titan race, let out a booming laugh. Small ships. How do they even fit their crews inside? Do they curl up like sleeping pets? Several other council members joined in the laughter. Master Bright displayed a hologram showing a size comparison between a human destroyer and a standard council military vessel. The difference was striking. The council ship dwarfed the human vessel by several times. Our initial scans show they have only colonized 3 systems beyond their home world, Master Bright reported. Their expansion has been modest. More chuckles echoed through the chamber. Admiral Stone cleared his throat. If I may speak, honored council. His voice was steady and confident, despite being surrounded by beings 3 times his size. High Commander Light, the council leader, nodded. You may address the council. Human. While our ships may appear small by your standards, Stone began, size isn't everything. Humanity has always believed in efficiency and innovation over raw scale. Efficiency? Lord Deep interrupted. What good is efficiency when your tiny ships can't even carry proper weapons? One hit from a standard plasma cannon would vaporize such a small vessel. Stone smiled slightly. Perhaps, but hitting us might prove more challenging than you think. The Council's military advisor, General Strong, stepped forward. His 4 arms crossed over his armored chest. I've reviewed the preliminary data on human ships. They pose no significant threat to galactic security. Their technology is functional but unremarkable. I recommend classifying them as a Level 3 civilization. Minimal military capability. Admiral Stone said nothing, but those who watched closely might have noticed a glimmer of amusement in his eyes. High Commander Light raised his hand for silence. Very well. We welcome humans to the galactic community as a Level 3 civilization. They may establish trade relations and cultural exchanges under standard protocols. He looked down at Stone. We trust you understand your place in the greater order of things. Of course, High Commander, Stone replied smoothly. We understand exactly where we stand. As the Admiral left the chamber, 2 junior council members watched him go. Strange creatures, these humans, one said. So small, yet they don't seem intimidated. Why should they be? The other replied. They're too simple to understand their own insignificance. Did you see their tiny ships? They're barely bigger than our personal shuttles. Neither of them noticed the small recording device Stone had left activated during the entire session. Back on Earth, the full Human Defense Council would be very interested in hearing how their first contact with the Galactic Council had gone. In his quarters that evening, Admiral Stone sent a brief encrypted message to Earth Command. Operation Small Fish proceeding as planned. They took the bait completely. Recommend continuing with Phase 2. The response came quickly. Understood. Maintain current facade. Let them keep underestimating us. They'll learn soon enough. Stone smiled as he looked out at the massive council ships floating in space. Sometimes, the best place to hide was in plain sight, especially when everyone was too busy laughing to look closer. 3 months after the first council meeting, trouble began brewing in the outer sectors. The Dominators, a race of giant reptilian warriors known for their aggressive expansion, had set their sights on human space. In the emergency council session, Admiral Stone stood once again in the center chamber. This time, his face showed genuine concern as he presented evidence of Dominator ships moving toward human colonies. "They've already destroyed 2 of our mining outposts," Stone reported. "We request immediate council intervention under the Protection Act." Lord Deep laughed from his platform. "The mighty Dominators are moving against you, and you come crying to us. Why not use your tiny ships to defend yourselves?" More laughter rippled through the chamber. High Commander Light raised his hand for silence. "While we sympathize with your situation, Admiral, the Council cannot commit resources to protect Level 3 civilizations from every border dispute. Perhaps you should consider surrendering the contested systems." Stone's jaw tightened. "With all due respect, Commander, those are our people out there. We won't abandon them." "Then what will you do?" General Strong asked mockingly. "Your largest ship is smaller than a Dominator scout vessel. Their main battle cruisers are 50 times the size of your biggest craft." "We'll defend ourselves," Stone replied simply. Master Bright stepped forward, holding his scanner. "Our latest reports show the Dominators have dispatched 30 battle cruisers toward human space. Each carries enough firepower to level a continent." The council chamber erupted in concerned murmurs. Not about the humans. Many species had fallen to the Dominators before. They worried about who the aggressive reptilians might target next. Back on the human colony world of New Hope, the situation was tense but controlled. Underground bunkers had been prepared years in advance. Military Commander West stood in the Defense Control Center, watching as civilians calmly filed into the shelters. "All evacuations proceeding according to plan," his assistant reported. "Defense grid is powered up but hidden. Satellite network is in ghost mode." West nodded. "Any word from Fleet Command?" "Yes, sir. Operation Mousetrap is greenlit. The 4th and 7th Quick Response Fleets are in position, but running dark. The Dominators don't suspect a thing." In space, the massive Dominator ships approached the human colony. Their golden-scaled commander, War Leader Mighty, stood confidently on his bridge. "Scans show only 5 human vessels in orbit," his sensor officer reported. "Tiny things, just as intelligence reported. This will be easy prey." Mighty bared his fangs in what passed for a smile among his kind. "Send them our demands for surrender. Let's see if they're smart enough to give up." The human ships received the message. Their commander, Captain Reed, allowed himself a small smile before responding. "To Dominator Fleet, come and get us." "Arrogant little creatures," Mighty growled. "All ships, battle formation. Crush these insects quickly so we can begin colonization." The Dominator fleet moved forward in a standard attack pattern, their huge ships forming an overwhelming wall of firepower. They expected the human vessels to either flee or be destroyed in seconds. They didn't expect what happened next. As the first Dominator shots fired, the human ships moved with impossible speed and precision. Their small size, which had drawn so much mockery, suddenly became their greatest advantage. They danced between the massive energy beams, too quick and agile to hit. "Impossible." Mighty roared as another barrage missed completely. "Nothing can move that fast." In the council chambers, the emergency session continued. A junior member rushed in with urgent news. "The Dominators have engaged the human fleet," he announced. They're having trouble hitting the human ships." "Nonsense," Lord Deep declared. "They're just prolonging the inevitable. Those tiny ships can't possibly." His words were cut off by another announcement. 2 Dominator cruisers have taken heavy damage. The human ships, they're still intact." Admiral Stone stood quietly, watching the reactions around him. He touched his communicator once, sending a prearranged signal. It was time to show the galaxy that sometimes the smallest dogs had the sharpest teeth. The battle above New Hope Colony quickly turned into something no one in the galaxy had expected. War Leader Mighty watched in growing horror as his massive ships failed to land a single hit on the human vessels. "How are they moving like that?" he roared, slamming his scaled fist on his command chair. "Nothing can change direction that fast." On the bridge of his tiny ship, Captain Reed calmly gave orders. "Attack pattern Delta. Target their main engine clusters. Remember your training. They can't hit what they can't predict." The 5 human ships moved like dancers in a deadly ballet. Their size, which had brought nothing but mockery from the galaxy, now proved to be their greatest weapon. The massive Dominator weapons were designed to fight equally massive ships, not these swift, darting vessels that could turn on a dime. "Sir," Reed's tactical officer called out, "enemy ships are maintaining standard attack formation. They haven't adapted their tactics." Reed nodded. Of course they hadn't. The Dominators, like the rest of the galaxy, were set in their ways. Big ships, big guns, predictable patterns. "Execute Phase 2, he ordered. The human ships suddenly split apart, each taking a different approach vector. The Dominator fleet's formation, designed to concentrate fire on large targets, now worked against them. Their own ships blocked each other's firing lines as they tried to track the smaller vessels. In the council chambers, the gathered representatives watched the battle feeds in stunned silence. The images showed human ships diving between Dominator vessels, their small size allowing them to maneuver in spaces the larger ships couldn't even think about entering. "Impossible," Lord Deep whispered. "Those engines, the G-forces should be crushing their crews." Admiral Stone finally spoke up. "Inertial dampeners. When you build small, you can make them much more efficient. Our crews are quite comfortable, actually." The battle feed suddenly lit up with new explosions. The human ships had opened fire. Their weapons, while smaller than the Dominators, were precisely targeted. Each shot struck vulnerable points that larger ships would have had trouble hitting. 3 more Dominator ships critically damaged, someone announced in the council chamber. They're using some kind of focused energy weapons. Very precise. War Leader Mighty's situation was becoming desperate. "Launch all fighters," he ordered. Those human ships must have some weakness. But as the Dominator fighter craft poured out of their carrier ships, they faced another surprise. The human vessels released their own fighters. Craft so small they had been completely missed by initial scans. These tiny fighters were even more agile than their motherships. Their fighter pilots must be insane. A Dominator squadron leader screamed as another of his ships exploded. The human fighters were flying into spaces barely bigger than themselves, using the Dominator's own ships as cover. In the council chambers, General Strong studied the battle with growing concern. Their entire strategy. It's all based on their small size. They're not trying to match our power. They're using our size against us. Admiral Stone allowed himself a small smile. "As I said in our first meeting, size isn't everything." The battle reached its climax when Captain Reed's ship executed a maneuver that should have been physically impossible. It curved around a Dominator cruiser in a spiral pattern, its weapons blazing with surgical precision. The massive ship's engine containment failed, forcing 3 nearby vessels to break formation. "Retreat," War Leader Mighty finally ordered. "All ships, emergency withdrawal." His mighty fleet, which had expected an easy victory, fled from ships they had laughed at just hours before. The council chamber was dead silent as they watched the Dominator fleet jump away. Of their 30 ships, 7 were destroyed, 12 severely damaged, and the rest had been humiliated by what they had dismissed as tiny vessels. High Commander Light turned to Admiral Stone. "It seems," he said carefully, "that we may need to reconsider your classification level." Stone looked at the battle reports coming in. "Perhaps," he said quietly. "But first, I need to send a message to my superiors." He paused. "The Dominators will be back, and next time they won't underestimate us. We'll need to deploy the actual combat fleet." "The actual combat fleet?" Lord Deep asked nervously. Stone's smile grew just a bit wider. "Oh yes, these were just our patrol boats." The Galactic Council's top scientists gathered in their analysis chamber, hovering over data streams from the recent battle. Master Bright led the emergency investigation, his usual confidence replaced by worried confusion. "These readings can't be right," he muttered, reviewing the scans for the 20th time. "The power output from these human ships, it should be impossible for vessels that small." The chamber walls displayed detailed breakdowns of human ship capabilities. What they revealed was shocking the greatest minds in the galaxy. "Look at their miniaturization technology," one scientist pointed out. "They're fitting power cores the size of personal generators that produce as much energy as our capital ship reactors." Admiral Stone stood to the side, watching their growing realization with calm interest. The Council had demanded a full technical briefing after the battle, and now they were finally beginning to understand. "Their weapons," another scientist added. "They're not actually smaller versions of our weapons at all. They're completely different technology. Highly focused, incredibly efficient." Master Bright turned to Stone. How did you achieve this level of miniaturization?" "Necessity," Stone replied simply. "Earth, our homeworld, has higher gravity than most inhabited planets. We had to learn to do more with less just to reach orbit. Building smaller and more efficient became our way of life." The Council's military committee was having its own emergency session. General Strong paced back and forth, his forearms clenched in frustration. "The battle data shows their ships pulling maneuvers at 40 gravities," he exclaimed. "That should turn their crews to paste. But their inertial control systems are built into the very structure of their ships," a technical advisor finished. "The smaller the ship, the more efficient the dampening. They can pull tighter turns than anything we have." Lord Deep, who had once laughed at human ships, now looked pale. "And you say these were just patrol boats, not actual warships?" Stone nodded. "Our patrol fleet uses older technology. Lighter weapons, basic shields. They're designed for speed and reconnaissance, not heavy combat." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. In another part of the Council station, intelligence analysts were reviewing their previous scans of human space. With their new understanding of human technology, they were finding things they'd missed before. "Sir," one analyst called to his superior, "I've rescanned the human colonies with the new detection protocols. Their shipyards, they're not small. They're mostly underground." The superior rushed over. "What? We thought they only had a few small construction facilities, but they've built vast manufacturing complexes beneath the surface of their worlds. Our sensors missed them completely because we were looking for structures the size of our own shipyards." The news spread quickly through the Council station. Species that had dismissed humans as insignificant were suddenly viewing them in a very different light. In the main Council chamber, High Commander Light called an emergency session. Admiral Stone stood once again in the center, but this time no one was laughing. "Our analysis suggests," Master Bright reported to the Assembly, "that human technological development took a radically different path from the rest of the galaxy. While we focused on building bigger, they focused on building better." Displays showed comparisons between standard Council technology and human innovations. The size difference was staggering, but the efficiency ratings were even more shocking. "Their entire civilization," General Strong added, "is built around miniaturization and efficiency. Their cities extend deep underground. Their factories are compact, but highly productive. Even their computers are far smaller and more powerful than ours." Admiral Stone stepped forward. "We never wanted to deceive you," he said. "We simply saw no reason to correct your assumptions. When you're small, being underestimated can be an advantage." "And your actual combat fleet?" High Commander Light asked cautiously. Stone's expression remained neutral. "Currently mobilizing. Our shipyards have been running at full capacity since the Dominators first entered our space. We've had time to prepare." The council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The tiny fleet they had mocked was revealing itself to be something far more formidable than anyone had imagined. And somewhere out in space, the real human combat fleet was gathering. Thousands of small, deadly efficient ships, preparing to teach the galaxy a lesson about judging by size. War Leader Mighty stood before the Dominator High Command, his scales dark with shame. "The humans must be punished for their insolence," he growled. "I request command of the main battle fleet." The Dominator leaders agreed. Their reputation had been damaged by the defeat of Mighty's force. They would crush these humans with overwhelming power. 3 days later, 500 massive Dominator warships emerged from hyperspace near the human border. Each ship was the size of a small city, bristling with weapons. "Let's see their tiny ships stand against this," Mighty snarled from his new flagship. In the Council Observation Center, representatives from dozens of species watched tensely. The Dominator fleet was the largest seen in a century. "The humans don't stand a chance," Lord Deep muttered. "Not even with their advanced technology." Admiral Stone stood calmly, watching the tactical displays. He touched his communicator. "Command, the enemy is in position. Execute Operation Hornet's Nest." Suddenly, space itself seemed to shimmer around the Dominator fleet. Hidden sensor buoys activated, revealing what the massive ships had blundered into. "By the stars," Master Bright whispered, staring at his readings. "I'm detecting thousands of human ships. They're everywhere." The human combat fleet decloaked in waves. Ships smaller than Dominator fighters appeared in precise formation. Not dozens or hundreds, but thousands of them. They had been waiting in stealth mode, letting the enemy walk right into their trap. War Leader Mighty's confidence turned to horror. "Impossible. How did we miss them?" "Sir," his sensor officer shouted, "these readings, their weapons are far more advanced than the patrol boats we fought." The human fleet struck like a swarm of angry hornets. Hundreds of small ships attacked each Dominator vessel, moving so fast they were barely visible on sensors. Their weapons were tiny but precise, targeting shield generators, weapon mounts, and engine systems with surgical accuracy. "They're inside our formation," a Dominator captain screamed. "They're too close. Our weapons can't track them." In the council chamber, the observers watched in awe. The human ships moved like a synchronized dance team, flowing around the massive Dominator vessels in patterns that seemed impossible. "Look at their coordination," General Strong marveled. "Each ship knows exactly where every other ship will be. They're not just small, they're working together like a single organism." The Dominator fleet tried to regroup, to form defensive patterns, but the human ships were everywhere. They slipped through gaps in shields, exploited blind spots in weapon coverage, and struck at vital systems that larger ships couldn't reach. Their entire strategy, Master Bright realized, is based on what we thought was their weakness. They're not trying to match the Dominator's power, they're using their size to make that power useless. Admiral Stone nodded. "Big ships make big targets, and when your enemy is big enough, there are always gaps in their defenses, gaps that smaller ships can exploit." The battle turned into a slaughter. Dominator ships, despite their enormous size and power, couldn't effectively fight back against opponents that could literally fly circles around them. War Leader Mighty watched in despair as his mighty fleet was torn apart by ships he could barely see on his view screen. "Fall back," he ordered. "All ships, retreat." But the humans had planned for this too. Their faster ships had already moved to cut off escape routes. The Dominator fleet was trapped. "Your surrender will be accepted," a calm human voice transmitted across all frequencies. "Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded." In the council chamber, the observers were silent. The mighty Dominator battle fleet, terror of the galaxy, was being systematically dismantled by ships they had once mocked for being too small. Admiral Stone allowed himself a small smile. Size isn't everything, he said quietly. Sometimes, it's just a way to make yourself an easier target. The final tally was devastating. 300 Dominator ships destroyed. The rest captured or crippled. The human fleet had lost only a handful of vessels. The galaxy would never look at tiny ships the same way again. The Galactic Council's main chamber had never been so quiet. Representatives from every major species sat in stunned silence as they watched the final reports from the battle. The mighty Dominator fleet, once the terror of the galaxy, now floated in space as captured prizes of war. High Commander Light cleared his throat. Admiral Stone, the Council formally requests a reassessment of human military capabilities. Stone stood in the center of the chamber, but this time the atmosphere was very different. No one was laughing at the human's small stature anymore. "Of course, Commander," Stone replied. "Though I should mention that what you saw was only our quick response fleet." Quick response. Lord Deep's voice shook slightly. "You mean you have more ships?" "Our main battle fleet is still in production," Stone explained. "These were just the ships we could gather quickly when the Dominators threatened our colonies." The chamber erupted in worried whispers. Master Bright stepped forward with new data readings. "We've completed our analysis of the battle," he announced. "The human fleet demonstrated several technologies we've never seen before. Their stealth systems alone are generations ahead of anything in our database." General Strong, who had once dismissed human ships as harmless, now stood with all four arms clasped behind his back. "Their combat doctrine is revolutionary. They don't just use their small size to avoid attacks. They use it to exploit weaknesses we didn't even know our ships had." The tactical displays showed recordings from the battle. Tiny human ships slipping through shield gaps that larger vessels couldn't even detect, targeting systems that bigger ships couldn't reach, and coordinating in ways that made them seem like parts of a single organism. "The Dominators made a critical mistake," Stone explained. "They thought bigger meant better. They never considered that their size made them vulnerable to smaller, more agile opponents." A junior council member raised a hand. "But surely your small ships can't carry many weapons or supplies. They must have limited range and firepower." Stone smiled. "Actually, our miniaturization technology means we can fit more into our ships than you might think. Each vessel carries enough supplies for extended operations. As for weapons," he paused. "Well, the Dominators can tell you about our firepower." The council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Many had privately mocked humans when they first arrived. Now they were reconsidering every assumption they'd made. "There's something else," Master Bright added. "We've detected increased activity around human space. Their shipyards," Stone nodded, "are operating at full capacity. The Dominator threat showed us we need to be prepared. Our new production facilities are building ships at a rate that might surprise you." "How many ships?" High Commander Light asked cautiously. "Let's just say we believe in having strength in numbers," Stone replied. "When you build small and efficient, you can build more. A lot more." The implications weren't lost on anyone. The humans hadn't just defeated the Dominators. They had done it with only a fraction of their potential force. In a private chamber after the main session, several council leaders met to discuss the situation. Lord Deep paced nervously. "We laughed at them," he muttered. "We treated them like children playing with toys. And all along they were building one of the most advanced fleets in the galaxy," General Strong finished. "Right under our noses. We were too busy looking for big ships to notice." High Commander Light studied the battle recordings again. "Their ships move like nothing I've ever seen. The coordination, the precision. It's like watching a dance rather than a battle." "A rather deadly dance," Master Bright added. "The Dominators lost more ships in one battle against humans than in their last 3 wars combined." In the station's observation deck, Admiral Stone stood watching the stars. A message from Earth Command flashed on his personal device. "Phase 3 complete. The galaxy now understands. Proceed with diplomatic initiatives." Stone smiled as he watched a group of council members hurrying past, probably to another emergency meeting. They had learned an important lesson. Sometimes the smallest dogs had the sharpest teeth. And somewhere out in human space, thousands more tiny ships were taking shape in hidden shipyards, preparing to defend their place in a galaxy that would never underestimate them again. 1 month after the historic battle, the Galactic Council gathered for a special session. The chamber had been modified. The human representatives now had their own permanent section, equal in prominence to the oldest council members. High Commander Light stood at the center. Today, we formally recognize humanity as a major defense force of the galaxy. Their contribution to defeating the Dominator threat cannot be understated. Admiral Stone sat with several other human officers in their designated area. Next to their section, dozens of captured Dominator weapons and ship parts were displayed, a reminder of their victory. Furthermore, Light continued, the Council wishes to formally apologize for our previous misconceptions about human capabilities. Lord Deep, once the loudest mocker of human ships, stepped forward. We judged based on size alone. We failed to see that true strength lies in innovation, not scale. But the biggest surprise was yet to come. Master Bright approached the central platform with new scanning data. Honorable Council, he announced, our latest deep space surveys of human territory have revealed something extraordinary. He activated the main display. We've detected what appears to be a massive construction project. The images showed a vast network of structures hidden in the space between human colonies. What at first looked like small installations were actually interconnected parts of something much larger. Would you care to explain, Admiral Stone? High Commander Light asked. Stone stood, smiling slightly. Of course. What you're seeing is our new galactic defense network. Those small structures are actually modular components of a coordinated defense system. The chamber erupted in amazed murmurs as Stone continued. Each module is highly automated, requiring minimal crew. They can combine or separate as needed, forming larger structures or breaking into smaller, more maneuverable units. Like a living organism, Master Bright breathed, adapting to threats as needed. Exactly, Stone confirmed. The same principle as our ships, smaller individual units working together to achieve what others do with size alone, but on a much larger scale. General Strong studied the images with professional interest. The tactical advantages would be enormous. Instead of a few large defensive stations, you have thousands of smaller ones that can support each other. And if some are destroyed, Lord Deep asked. The network adapts, Stone explained. Like a living thing healing itself, other modules move to fill the gap. This is what we've been building while everyone was focused on our ships. The council members watched in awe as simulations showed the defense network in action. Smaller modules combining into larger configurations, then breaking apart again, all while maintaining perfect coordination. High Commander Light turned to Stone. After mocking your tiny ships, we now find ourselves asking for your help. Many council species wish to learn from human technology. Stone nodded. We're prepared to share some of our advances. Under proper agreements, of course, starting with improved miniaturization techniques. In a private chamber after the session, several council leaders gathered to discuss the implications. They've completely changed how we think about space warfare, General Strong mused. Size is no longer the advantage we thought it was. Not just warfare, Master Bright added. Their miniaturization technology could revolutionize everything, from city planning to resource management. The next day, as Stone prepared to return to Earth, he received visitors from dozens of species, all eager to establish diplomatic relations with the humans they had once mocked. Quite a change from our first council meeting, his aide commented. Stone smiled, remembering the laughter that had filled the chamber when they first arrived. Sometimes the best way to teach a lesson is to let others learn it themselves. As his ship departed the council station, Stone looked back at the massive structure. Soon, it too would be upgraded with human technology, becoming more efficient and adaptable. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. True strength didn't come from size, but from innovation, efficiency, and working together. The species that had laughed at the tiny fleet now looked to humanity as teachers and protectors. And somewhere in human space, the modular defense network continued to grow, a testament to the principle that had brought humanity to the stars. Sometimes the smallest solutions solve the biggest problems.